Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Legends League May stat review. We're looking at things after the first week of May, so we have a little bit more than a full month played, maybe even a month and a half at this point. But we've got solid sample sizes, and we're going through and looking at everybody's teams and how everybody's doing a little strategy dive in and comparing performance to the keys that I laid out for all these teams at the beginning of the season in our divisional previews. Gonna start off with the cupcakes so that we can let people trickle into the stream if they want to get live for having a look at these teams. So we're looking at the Marlins. This was kind of a fun-loving, goofy group of characters who had wacky stories from their past, along with famous Marlins when we started off and we're theming everything. Of course, a lot of those themes have changed since we started out. When I have rebalanced the teams and people have been picked up off of waivers, the themes have really kind of gotten lost, and that's okay. Miguel Tejada, big surprise for the Marlins. He's been on an absolute tear lately. He has 12 home runs in a 307 average and 140 at bats. It's amazing. And compare that to Hank Aaron's, 99 power or whatever he has, and it's just ridiculous that Tejada is outperforming Hank Aaron. Walker Cooper has been another really consistent performer for the Marlins so far. He has 8 home runs and 124 at bats with a 347 average. Kirk Gibson has also been a pretty solid presence for this lineup. Miguel Tejada with a 362 on base percentage. Cliff Floyd with a 378. So the lineup construction is really getting it done for these Marlins, rewarding their best hitters, putting them at the top of the lineup, and they're winning ball games because of it. Would like to see the Rockies be able to do that. Cliff Floyd, 0 range factor. Oh, I think he's the DH for this team. He doesn't just stand there in left field and not do anything, which I think is what a 0 range factor would be. I guess if the ball was hit right to him, he would still catch it, right? Or would that be a range factor of 1? And a peek at the pitching for Miami. Mort Cooper has been the sole ace for this roster. I was expecting more from Doc Ellis. I guess hoping for more from Doc Ellis. I have seen him throw some pretty singularly good games, though, so he's probably going to take a longer look in this rotation. Blue Moon Odom's been pretty good for this roster as well. Mickey Lalich, pretty darn big disappointment. Alrighty, going to click over to the other cupcake in this division, which is the New York Mets. This team has a flavor of a lot of guys that played baseball recently, but maybe retired in the last 10 years or so, along with recent or famous Mets. Jamie Moyer was drafted, I believe, by the Braves, and I know he pitched a kind of a revenge game against the Braves and kind of shut him down. He has a 4.34 ERA on the year, which is pretty fantastic in his 37.1 innings pitched. He's kind of a poor man's Greg Maddux and is pitching better than Greg Maddux. So again, more reason. I know we're not talking about the AL East anymore, but I can't get over the fact that Greg Maddux isn't doing well. Frank Viola has got a hot streak, which is encouraging because he's been a huge disappointment. I was relying on him to be at least an innings eater for this rotation. Matt Cain has been the surprise of maybe all of the NL East in terms of pitching, with his 63 innings pitched, 3 ERA, 1.1 WHIP. Only 47 strikeouts in those 63 innings and a 4-4 record, but we see him pop up on box scores all the time with just dominant starts against really good lineups. And looking at the Mets hitters, last thing before we finally get into our Legends teams was just giving everybody a chance to trickle onto the stream if they wanted to get here. One of my favorite things about this team is that I put the Upton brothers on the team together and was just praying that they would perform well, and awesome. They're doing great, so I can keep running them out there every day. BJ Upton with a 3.08 average in 120 at-bats, 4 home runs, 19 RBIs, and 3 steals is great. He's scored 21 runs, which is amazing. Lou Whitaker has been also a great piece for this team. I think he's a 93 natively, but playing up as a 95, probably because he gets to be a star for this team. 6 steals for him. The rate stats aren't exactly fantastic. Jeff McNeil, who's a current, batting average star, is hitting 300. I believe he's playing the strong side of a platoon, so he's getting a lot more at bad bats where that 97 contact against righties really gets to play up for him. BJ Upton has just been stellar, 884 OPS. And then, there's some other fun players on this team like Yoenis Cespedes. Of course, Bobby Bonilla out there every day at third base. He's getting paid to be there, so why not? He has grounded into 5 double plays. Ooh, bit of a defensive problem for this team. Edgardo Alfonso and Lou Whitaker both committing 3 errors. Not encouraging. A lot of solid WAR numbers from this team. Jeff McNeil already 1.5, BJ Upton with the same, and Bonilla with a 1.2. That's great. All right, let's get into the real stuff. Let's flip over to Atlanta, which was my World Series pick out of the East. Can I find... Let's play Find the Braves logo. There we go. This was my pick to come out of the NL in the World Series due to my appreciation for their lineup construction and kind of overall strategy and how I think it would play out over the course of a big season. They've got this old school style, lots of on-base percentage, few true home run sluggers. So my 3 keys for this team were, number 1, the pitching and defense is as good in that... Sorry. Key number 1, pitching and defense is as good in-game as it can be in real life. I think this one was just down to the simulation and whether it would, how much importance it would put on defense and pitching, because that's a big strategy that this team went for. We'll see how that's been doing for them. Number 2 is that run production would have to come from the top to the bottom of the lineup without them having the prototypical modern bopper in the middle. Now, that was with the outside chance that Sadaharu O could turn into that prototypical bopper, and it looks like he's stepped up to the challenge. Key number 3 was that Bob Feller is an ace more than half of the time. We've seen him be utterly dominant on the stream. We've seen him get blown up on the sim, so it'll be interesting to see how his stats have played out so far. For the Braves, they're not getting much run out of their back up to the backup shortstop. Archie Vaughn has only 13 at-bats on the season. This AI manager loves to play Nomar Garciaparra, especially because the Braves were trying to run an experiment of getting both Charlie Gehringer and Eddie Collins on the field at the same time by playing one of them out of position at short, but the AI just didn't seem to want to do that because none of those guys has shortstop as a primary or secondary position. So it kept starting Nomar Garciaparra and like never starting Arky Vaughn, which is kind of a bummer. He's only hit 231, hasn't been able to get it going. Ron Santo also never playing, but not doing anything that would encourage you to make him play. Same with Mickey Cochran. But I think the starters have been getting the job done for this team, so they haven't needed this bench as much as some rosters. Larry Doby recently got the promotion to starting shortstop, I believe, and has been playing well of late, though his 236 average isn't stellar. For the people getting the bulk of the at-bats for this roster, Ty Cobb, it's Sadaharu who leads the way with 34 runs scored. That's surprising. Ty Cobb, you would figure, would be leading this roster in that department. He has 27. Lots of players scoring lots of runs, which is right in line with that key that I was talking about. Everybody on this page has double digits runs scored, which is great. On the RBI side, we've got Ty Cobb with 30, O with 31. So there's your leadoff hitter, and I don't know if this guy, he hits 3, 4, or 5 every day, I'm pretty sure. But they're doing their job. 30 RBI is elite at this point in the season. Killebrew doing great with 22. Got a couple guys in the high teens with Dihigo. Oh, no, it's Dihigo who just got the promotion to starting shortstop. My bad, not Doby. But, Gary Carter's got 17 RBIs. Charlie Gehringer's got 17 RBIs now that they figured out how to get both him and Collins in the lineup. They're now sharing a DH platoon and then getting on the field in opposite days. And there's Eddie Collins with 14 RBIs. Fantastic. I didn't expect this team to hit for a ton of power, but O's got 12 home runs. Cobb has 9. Killebrew with 7. Carter with 7. So they're clubbing the ball too. Really getting it done on offense for this Braves roster. 7 steals from Cobb, 6 from Collins, 6 from Dihigo. They're hitting you in all phases, it looks like. Looking at those on-base percentages, those are some of the best we've seen, I think. Eddie Collins with a 431 and O with a 441. That's crazy. I wonder if O needs to be hitting higher in the lineup for this roster so that you can get some more run production behind him. Though, boy, is he a great cleanup hitter. That's crazy. We haven't seen too many OPSs over 1,000, but his 1117 is definitely one of the better hitting lines we've seen. And then down here, Charlie Gehringer with an OPS over 1,000 in his 87 at-bats. Once they found a way to get him in the lineup, he has rewarded them with a 356, 417, 586 triple slash. Wild. Martin Dihigo hitting 243, 303, 393. So I guess his slugging is really what's bringing his OPS down. He's still performing quite well and playing a valuable role for this team. Yeah, lots of solid on-base numbers here. Eddie Collins with 30 walks to 22 strikeouts. That might be the best walk-to-strikeout ratio we've seen looking at these stats so far. And then Sadaharu O right there with 26 and 26. So this team is working good counts, drawing their walks. Really liking the underlying stats for the Braves. The results haven't been there. The team was playing under 500 up until recently when they went on a bit more of a winning streak, and now they're back in the hunt for first place in a very tightly packed NL East. But the offensive results for the lineup are looking good. A good amount of caught stealings. That's a little bit worrisome, but that slider has been ticked down, so hopefully that won't be too much of a problem moving forward. Couple errors. Dihigo has 2. Killebrew has 2. You don't expect Killebrew to be a fantastic defender, and he's been playing 317 innings, so only 2 errors is maybe what you'd expect. Not good, not great, or not good, not bad. Oh, and Collins with an error each. Yeah, okay, so there's some defensive lapses here, but with some stalwarts in the outfield not hurting you too much. Gary Carter hasn't made an error despite playing 301 innings on the season. He's been shouldering a heavy load. Let's have a look at the pitching. Bert Blyleven, the only guy who we're not going to see on the full page here, he has only 3.1 innings pitched. That 8.1 ERA, too small of a sample to say anything about really. 2.1 WHIP is not good. Yeah, his attribute profile suggests that that's just a small sample size. One game he gets roughed up and now his stats look bad because he hasn't pitched. Everybody else on this team has, though. Let's have a look at these rates. So Bob Feller, a big key for this team, he's just pitching great. A 3.21 ERA with a 1.18 WHIP, 65 strikeouts in 56 innings, a 4-2 record. He's definitely an ace more than 50% of the time so far. Walter Johnson has also been an ace, 2.82 ERA in 54.1 innings with 59 strikeouts. 103 WHIP is just nuts with that big of a sample. That's fantastic. Only 13 walks to those 59 strikeouts as well. So this is one of the better pitching performances that we've looked at. Not even a single actual reliever. Is that true? That's funny. They've gone all starting pitching, and yeah, we'll see how that's working out. Warren Spahn has been a bit of a disappointment. He hasn't been walking guys, only 17 walks, but only 46 strikeouts in 51 innings, a 5.29 ERA. But that 1.16 WHIP is great, so we'll put a flag in that and see what his FIP is. Don Sutton with a 4.71 ERA. Also, you'd expect him to be doing better in 49 innings, but he's 5-2, so he's clearly given the team a chance to win. Dazzy Vance has been a disappointment. Yeah, Dizzy Dean for the Cardinals and Dazzy Vance, two guys with fun first names that just aren't getting it done. He has a 6.08 ERA in 46 innings, 22 walks, 48 Ks, so at least he's striking out more than a batter per inning, but that 1.65 WHIP isn't great. We'll put a flag in him for FIP as well. And then we have these starters in the bullpen: Joe McGinnity, Bob Lemon, Stan Kovaleski, Robin Roberts, and Waity? I don't know how to say that name. Hoyt. Yeah, and Bert Blyleven. So it is a bullpen of high stamina guys. And we see Robin Roberts and Hoyt performing well in the role. They have 12.1 and 11 innings pitched respectively. Roberts with a 1.46 ERA, Waite with a 1.64 ERA. That's great. Both of their whips are well under one. Way to go for those guys. And Roberts is the closer. He's got 13 saves in those 12.1 innings pitched. Has he blown one? Nope. Stan Kovaleski has blown 3 saves, though, and Blyleven blew one himself. Hoyt has 5 holds, so he must be serving as the setup guy. Yeah, Kovaleski with 17 1/3 innings pitched means that he's pitching a lot. He has 10 walks and only 12 Ks in that time, 6.23 ERA, 1.85 WHIP. Not too great. And then kind of somewhere in the middle, you've got McGinnity and Lemon, who are performing like a lot of these other long relievers that we're seeing, maybe more like a Johnny Cueto or somebody who's getting the job done but not being amazing. They have ERAs under 5 but higher than 4.5. Not a ton of strikeouts. They only have 1 loss between them. Kovaleski, I guess, has been the big target out of the bullpen. He has 4 losses, which ties the team for the lead with Dazzy Vance. Bob Feller's turned in 6 quality starts in his 8 starts, so he's definitely living up to his expectation. Walter Johnson has a quality start in all 8 of his starts, 3 from Spahn, 5 from Sutton, and only 2 from Vance, so a more sign that Dazzy is hurting the team more than he's helping at this point. But there's plenty of starting pitchers that can slide into his slot who are pitching great. Walter Johnson has allowed 10 home runs, which leads the team strangely, but his numbers are so great, you gotta imagine that those are mostly solo shots and aren't hurting him too bad. Spahn, on the other hand, has given up 9, and that maybe he's giving up, 3-run home runs. Doing more poorly when runners are on base. Let's look at their clutch. Oh, both of their clutches are amazing. So not going to read too much into that. Vance has given up 7. Sutton's only allowed 5, which is great by comparison. Nobody has accrued a single win above replacement yet, which is surprising to me, especially with Walter Johnson having such great numbers. Yeah, 10.45 Ks per 9 from Feller and a 4.34 walks per 9. I think if you could have signed up for that at the beginning of the season, you would have gone ahead and done it, because that's what we expected him to be. Walter Johnson, 2.15 walks per 9 is elite. More encouraging numbers from Spahn there. Okay, the FIP thing. So Spahn's FIP is lower than his ERA by 3/4 of a point. That's encouraging for him. Johnson's FIP is higher, as is Feller. So maybe they've been doing better with runners on base or something like that, which is something that I think you would expect from both of them. So that could be a skill thing. FIP suggests better days for Dazzy Vance ahead. It's 4.33 compared to his 6.07 ERA. And Don Sutton, FIP is a half point better. Generally encouraging from those guys. Kovaleski, however, nope. He's just been bad. Been so bad. Alrighty, that's it for the Braves. Moving over to Philadelphia. The Phillies are a team that has been going with a set it and forget it strategy. I don't think that they've made a roster move yet this season, and yet they are doing great. I believe that they were leading the NL East last I checked, but the division has been really tight. They've been trading the lead very frequently. My three keys for the Phillies were, number one, figure out a way to maximize their depth, and with the set it and forget it strategy, maybe that's something that they could be tinkering with more, because they have a lot of defense or depth at outfield, and figuring out how to get the most out of having a lot of really solid guys might take some managing here in the coming months. Key number two was that Gehrig and Kiner crush the ball more than they walk. I've identified both of these guys as being threats to be a little bit too disciplined and patient, kind of like what we saw from Prince Fielder on the Orioles, and walking a lot more than they actually drove in runs. I don't think that's been true for Kiner. He's been kind of the early odds on MVP so far. We'll have a look at those. And then key number three was that a true closer emerges. They have a bunch of their draft strategy was to take the highest overall guy available, pretty much, and not really think too hard about it. Which is it's almost like going off of your ADP list when you're drafting a fantasy team, and ignoring a couple guys who you don't like or who you're worried about. But yeah, it yielded a roster that just took value at every single pick in the draft, and I think it's been rewarding them so far. Like I said, they have a lot of depth. Stu Miller down here is a name who hasn't gotten a lot of work, only 8 1/3 innings, and Jeff Montgomery barely has even gotten on the mound with 2 2/3 innings pitched, though he hasn't allowed a run. Doc Crandall has been the closer. He has a 1.59 ERA, a 1.24 WHIP, only 4 strikeouts in 11 1/3 innings in his 12 saves. Has he blown one? He has blown one. A couple other guys have blown saves in there as well. So this guy has emerged as a closer, but has he emerged as a true closer? If you get into the playoffs and this guy comes in and he strikes out 4 batters every 11 innings, I don't know that that's the prototype of a closer that you necessarily need in the Legends League when the games are really, really high intensity. Doug Jones not doing great, 5.27 ERA out of the pen. Vic Willis and Jack Chesbro are doing admirably, more starting pitchers in bullpen roles. Josh Johnson, I think I've seen him get blown up pretty bad, but his ERA is 2.54 on the year in 28 innings, which is a substantial amount of work out of the pen. 29 strikeouts and a 1.24 WHIP. It's pretty darn good. For the pitching rotation, Andy Pettitte has been the surprise for this pitching staff. 2.85 ERA in 47 innings. He's struck out 44, and his WHIP is 1.08. Just absolutely fantastic. He was a late value in the draft after, maybe the first couple tiers of starters had gone, and he was a name who just kept falling and falling, and the Phillies grabbed him because he was just finally one of the highest overall guys left. And man, has he been good. He's 3-1. Mordecai Brown has also been pretty darn dominant. I think he's been streaky. Only 33 strikeouts in almost 50 innings. He's 3-4, but his ERA is just a shade under 4, and his WHIP is 1.31. I think he's really been a guy who's been on and off 5 quality starts in 8 games, so that would suggest that he's just had a couple big blow-ups. He is on a hot streak. Ed Walsh is not. He's on a cold streak, but he's the innings pitch leader with 50, a 3.91 ERA, a 1.28 WHIP, 49 strikeouts to 11 walks is incredible. So he might be performing like the ace of this roster if he's not the actual ace. Ed Walsh is not a guy I know about much in history, but this is making me want to go learn about him. I'm going to go learn about Ed Walsh today. And then Whitey Ford, who expectations were very high for this team. He's been underperforming. A 5.67 ERA, a 3-4 record, 38 strikeouts in 6 innings is not great. 1.41 WHIP, not encouraging. Ted Lyons, similar numbers, not great. A lot of quality starts from these guys, though. 5 each from Walsh, Brown, and Pettitte. 4 from Ford and 3 from Lyons. They're getting a lot of chances to win, and they're really converting those chances. Ed Walsh and Whitey Ford seem to have had a home run problem so far. 12 homers allowed by Walsh and 11 by Ford. It's quite a lot. Yeah, a lot of home runs allowed by the staff. I wonder how that hasn't come back to bite them more. Not great win above replacement numbers from the pitchers. Yeah, weird. Nobody striking out more than 10 batters per nine. So, that strikeout ace bullpen arm hasn't really emerged unless it's Josh Johnson with his 9.2 ERA, but he's succeeding so well in the long relief role, you'd hate to move him. But yeah, which one of these relievers is going to step up and be the guy that's called on with 2 runners on and a 1-run lead in the 7th inning of a wild card game or something? I don't think it's going to be Doug Jones. Andy Pettit's FIP suggests that his results may be a little bit more luck than skill, and generally the FIPs for this team not looking in the right direction. The offense has really been carrying them though, so they may not need their pitchers to be absolute world beaters. And here is the offensive stats. So we're not going to be seeing much of Troy Glaus, Bo Jackson, Sammy Sosa, or Tony Pena, and that's fine because they don't see much of the field either. Troy Glaus only 44 at bats. He's hitting .227 with only 1 home run. Bo Jackson, who was drafted pretty early, his skills are a lot more in the outfield and the speed game and a huge power game. So he's kind of an enigma player and a guy that the AI likes to sit a lot and not play because his vision and discipline are so rotten with 45 and 50 each. His clutch is only 77 too. So he hasn't seen much run. He has 8 RBIs and 41 at bats, which is encouraging, a .244 average, and hasn't hit one out of the park. Sammy Sosa, however, has 5 home runs in only 34 at bats and a .353 average. So this might be an opportunity for the Phillies to get some more out of their depth by figuring out a way to get slamming Sammy Sosa into the lineup on a daily basis. Same thing with Craig Biggio. This is a guy who, super high attribute stats. Well, not super high attribute stats. I thought my impression was that his underlying attributes were better. But this is a guy who hasn't found a way into the everyday lineup. He only has 73 at-bats on the year and has yet to get it going in accordance. However, that hasn't mattered because this guy's on the team. Ralph Kiner, in 143 at-bats, has 14 home runs, is hitting .399. If I had done this preview yesterday when I was doing everybody else, that average would have been over 400 because this guy has been absolutely on fire. I think he was hitting like .435 a week ago. So clearly he's finally cooled off a bit, but not really. Dude's almost hitting 400, and that's through 143 at-bats. So Ralph Kiner has been the odds-on MVP so far. He's the guy to beat right now, and he's the guy that I've got my eye on every time I see a Phillies box score. He has 35 RBIs, which we're seeing is really an elite total, right up there with the Alex Rodriguez's and other guys who are up at 30. Beyond that, we've got Carlton Fisk driving in 23 runs. Cal Ripken's driving in 21. He's been having a nice offensive season himself. 16 RBI from Vladimir Guerrero is great. And 15 from Gehrig. He's been a pretty darn big disappointment for this Phillies team, though after a really slow start, he's gotten his average all the way up to .271. He has only 4 home runs and 155 at-bats with 15 RBIs, but those numbers, like I said, were way worse just 2 weeks ago. So he's turned the corner. He hasn't hit his stride yet, but he's another candidate to have a scary month. Joe Sewell in 106 at-bats has only driven in 6. Put a flag in that, figure out what's going on there. Solid run production up and down. Jose Altuve has scored 21 runs. You might want to see more run production out of him, seeing that I think he's the leadoff hitter for this roster. Only 10 RBIs and those 21 runs, whereas you've got Cal Ripken Jr., who hits further down in the lineup, scoring 22 times and driving in 21. You'd like to see your leadoff guy a bit more of a spark plug than that, but Jose Altuve has also been a hero on the stream. You'd like to see more production out of Vlad as well. His defense has been also fireworks on the live stream. Jose Altuve, 13 steals. That might be leading the league. I'm not sure. 405 on base percentage. That's fantastic from your leadoff guy and makes you wonder why he hasn't scored more runs. You would assume hitting in front of Ralph Kiner, he might be closer to 25, 26 runs scored. Ralph Kiner almost on base at a 500 clip because he's walked 24 times against his 22 strikeouts in 143 at-bats. That's insane. Carlton Fisk only getting on base at a 262 clip, though he is getting it done with runners in scoring position, putting up 23 RBIs and having 9 home runs. So, there's an interesting bat to figure out where he's optimized in the lineup. Vladimir Guerrero on base under a 300 average, which is not great. He's slugging almost 400. I expect better things from Vlad coming up. And Carl Yastrzemski's another guy who's been hot and cold. I've seen him with both an icicle and a flame next to his name a couple times. Triple slashing, 265, 318, 441 in 102 at-bats. 5 home runs is solid. I believe he's part of the strong side of a platoon. Not sure. And then Bryce Harper, a pretty big disappointment for a guy who's playing close to every day. 220 average, 292 on base, 330 slugging. Maybe he's the guy who gets sacrificed for Sammy Sosa. That sounds really brutal. Jose Altuve has 23 walks against 17 strikeouts, which is incredible from your leadoff hitter. Can't ask for much more than that. That's probably a situation where just luck has kept his runs scored total down more than anything. 4 grounded into double plays by Guerrero and Yastrzemski. 3 from Kiner, which means that he could have had even better numbers, which is silly. Not too many caught stealings. Carlton Fisk has been caught 3 times, but yeah, everybody else has been more disciplined on the base paths than we see from other rosters. Couple errors here and there. You expect it from Kiner and Gehrig. You don't expect it from Altuve as much. His attributes aren't great. That's worse than I would have assumed him to be. Bryce Harper committing 2 errors as well with a 252 outfield innings is not what you want to see. Kiner's already put up 2.7 WAR. Altuve almost 2. Yeah, this team has seen some really heroic performances so far. That walk and strikeout percentage for Kiner is absurd and not going to stick around. Same with Altuve. Vladimir is doing Vladimir Guerrero things, and at least he's putting the bat on the ball a lot more than most players. That's cool to see. Ooh, Bryce Harper striking out in 33% of his at-bats. Run away. Run away. Here are these sabermetric numbers that I don't really know what they mean, other than I've been looking at range factor and how anything above 2 is good in the outfield. So Kiner with a 2.22 is a really solid left fielder. Vlad with a 2.34 is great. 2.32 from Harper. I think he's been playing some center, so that's encouraging. Oh, did we see assists? Yeah. Guerrero has 4 assists, so he's thrown out 4 guys from the outfield, which is fun. So has Bryce Harper. And Yastrzemski's thrown out 3. Bo Jackson's thrown out 3 as well. Wow. A lot of outfield assists by this team. Okay, looking at the lefty-righty platoon splits. Kiner looks to be equal against the left-handed and right-handed pitching. Carlton Fisk really struggling against righties. Not the craziest platoon splits from this lineup. Lou Gehrig not doing that well against righties. Him being a left-handed hitter, you would certainly assume that would turn around. Versus lefties, Lou Gehrig is crushing in 42 at-bats. He's hitting 357, so that's backwards. 8 of Kiner's 14 home runs have come against lefties in 38 at-bats. That's absurd. What is the at-bats per home run? How many times does 8 go into 38, right? Not that good at math. It's like somewhere between 4 and 5. Okay, so there's a reason why we might see Ralph Kiner coming down a little bit. He's been obliterating left-handed pitching to the tune of 8 home runs in 38 at bats. So I think we'll see regression there, which will bring his total line down, at least from these peak of Barry Bonds career high stuff, Home and away splits, which I don't put too much into, but here they are. And the clutch stuff. At bats with runners in scoring position, Lou Gehrig has had 52 of them, which is one of the highest that we've seen in any of these lineup breakdowns. He's only hitting 231 in those opportunities. Another reason to expect bigger and better things from Gehrig in the coming months. Ralph Kiner somehow only hitting 261 with runners in scoring position. That's 46 of his at-bats, and he's hitting 399. That's weird. I think that's an aberration. and would suggest that he might be an even better run producer, which is scary. Cal Ripken Jr. really getting it done with runners in scoring position. That 355 average in 31 at bats. He's been a really solid producer for this team, and I believe has to be the everyday shortstop. So that's great production. Jose Altuve only hitting 38 in 26 attempts. That's absolutely horrible. But he's your leadoff hitter, so you don't need him to be an RBI producer. And also, that's going to get better. Expect positive regression from that. Alrighty, that is it for the Phillies. And our final stop on our tour around the league is going to be in Washington. Where are they? There they are. The Washington Nationals. I had a hard time putting them at the bottom of my power rankings when I did my power rankings on last week's podcast. And I had such a hard time because I love this team. This might be the most fun team to root for me. It's like the Nationals, the Cardinals, the Mariners, the Braves. That's the baseball card collector in me is like, oh my God, these are a bunch of my guys, or man, would I love to have his baseball card or whatever, right? Just on a pure, fun, kid-like fan level, right? Those are the teams that I just smile when I watch them play. And yet, the Nationals, I didn't think had put the puzzle together to figure out how to get the most out of this roster. Maybe because it's tough to bench some of the guys that are just so much fun to watch, right? It's one of those corners that you can back yourself into in any kind of fantasy sport when you start playing favorites with the guy and not listening to what the statistics are telling you. So yeah, we will see T206 Wagner. T206 Wagner. I don't know what that means. Anyway, gonna look into the Nationals. My 3 keys for the Nationals when we looked at them before the season were, number 1, avoid rally killers. I think there were a lot of opportunities in this lineup for big high-pressure strikeouts or caught stealings or grounded into double plays to prevent the potential of this team from getting over the hump. So we'll see if they had those rally-killing kind of stats. Number 2 is that the corner defenders mesh at an all-star level. Mash at an all-star level. That's Chipper Jones and Buck Leonard, and if those two could play that power role in the middle of this lineup, then I was bullish on this team to score runs. And then number 3 is that a playoff pitching staff emerges. There's, a 1A pitcher here with Bob Gibson at the top, but I really thought that out of the next 4 guys, you needed at least 1 or probably 2 guys that could be that playoff level pitcher. So the chat was saying the T206 Wagner, the most expensive card on the planet, Honus Wagner. Right. Yes, of course that's a fun baseball card, but I don't have one of those. I mean, of course I would want one of those, but I don't know. Honus Wagner is fun to watch, but not as fun as Kerry Wood to me. This is just a glory play, right? Honus Wagner is one of those guys that, he's in the same categories. I love to see Hank Aaron play. I love to see Roberto Clemente play. It's a freaking legend and it's amazing. But Kerry Wood had some really cool baseball cards, with some crazy stat numbers from his crazy 20 strikeout game or whatever he did. I think he got over 20, right? Mark Pryor, fun guys. Anyway, looking at this pitching staff, the guys who haven't pitched much are Jordan Hicks and Luis Severino. They have only 7 1/3 between them. Cannonball Redding, the setup guy, only has 7 himself. And Hicks and Severino have been absolutely awful. Small sample size, but those ERAs are both north of 10, and that might be reason to just abandon ship before you even have to see anything more. Cannonball Jackman was chosen to be the closer of this roster. He has 11 saves in 10 innings pitched, 10 strikeouts, and only 2 walks, so he has really risen to the task. I think he blew 1 save. Yeah, he's blown 1 save on the season. And then for the rest of the team, like I said, Bob Gibson is the absolute stalwart at the top of this rotation. He's 7-0 in 58 innings pitched, 65 strikeouts, 22 walks. His whip is 1.21, which is, isn't the elite level that we've seen from some of these guys, but his ERA is sitting at 2.64, so he's clearly getting it done. He has 6 quality starts out of his 8 starts, and one of those not quality starts must have been a win, so still giving his team a chance to win every day. Mike Mussina, one of the guys who could emerge as one of those playoff stalwarts, he's pitched 54 innings, only 8 walks, which is exactly what you want to see from your two-starter. 52 Ks, a 3.5 ERA, and a 1.2 WHIP. 5 quality starts from him is really encouraging. Ray Brown, though, has even stepped up bigger, 51 innings, a 2.29 ERA, 1.1 WHIP. Just incredible. And the kind of thing that could turn him into a weapon that surprises a lot of people in the playoff stretch. Leon Day has also been pretty hot and cold. He doesn't have the consistent strikeout numbers to prove it, but he has a 4.43 ERA and a 1.48 WHIP. But we have seen him be utterly dominant when he's been on. He has 3 quality starts. And then Kerry Wood, who somehow is 1-5 despite a 3.46 ERA. I want to put a flag in him to check out his FIP later, but he does have that elite strikeout stat and has been walking too many people in not enough innings. Ray Brown with 6 quality starts is really quite excellent. A few shutouts from this roster as well. Cannonball Redding, the setup guy, has 7 holds. Has been doing quite well in that role. Mussina, a bit of a home run problem with 10 home runs in 54 innings, but with that low of a walk rate, that's much better for limiting damage from home runs. Bob Gibson has given up 8, but those must have been solo shots because his ERA is way too good. Two guys in the starting rotation with Ks per 9 over 10, which is very fun. I wonder if Kerry Wood might have a better time in the bullpen, though, with that elite K stat, kind of turn him loose in a 2 to 3 inning stint, and maybe the high walk numbers don't hurt you as much over the full season. I don't know. But 6.23 walks per 9 is rough from a guy who you need to eat a bunch of innings for you. Leon Day with a 5.11 FIP is not encouraging. His ERA is quite lower at 4.43. Kerry Wood's FIP up at almost 4.6 suggests that he may be in for rougher waters. I'm assuming that's pulled upwards by his walk totals. Cannonball Redding has a worrisome FIP of 8.57, but he doesn't have a loss to his name yet, so can't complain too much. Great FIP from the closer. And yeah, the gap between Ray Brown's ERA and FIP is pretty high. Probably because of the low strikeouts. And now looking at the position players, where I think a couple of the holes for this team are, but I really do feel like a couple adjustments and this Nats team is going to be rising at my power rankings, especially because they keep winning. That's the other thing. They're outperforming a lot of their peripheral stats on the offense by turning in gritty efforts and winning ball games. Gary Sheffield, Carlos Correa, Charles Johnson, and Alfonso Soriano barely seeing the field. Giancarlo Stanton is the weak part of a platoon, so he only has 58 at-bats and is not rewarding his coach with only a 190 average. 186 from Soriano, 167 from Johnson, 286 from Correa, and 091 from Sheffield, not getting anything out of what we thought was going to be a strength from this team, which is their depth. Looking at the run production totals, nobody really emerging as the top masher on this squad. Only 7 home runs from Chipper Jones and Buck Leonard and Juan Soto. Would like to see one of those guys step forward and bring a bit more of a power presence into the middle of this lineup, which was one of those keys at the beginning of the season, and maybe a thing that the Nationals are going to need to think about making a trade. Another guy who you expected to hit for a lot more power was Albert Bell, but he's only got 4 home runs on the season, only 12 RBIs, which is definitely worrisome. Buck Leonard leading the way with 24 RBIs, 22 for Chipper, 19 from Ricky, who has really turned it around out of the leadoff spot, got his average up to 303 after a slow start. Victor Martinez only with 9 RBIs, despite being given the keys as the full-time catcher. Aaron Judge only 10 RBIs. He's on the strong side of the platoon, so you'd like to see that number higher. And Derek Jeter driving in 14 runs, but he's more of a table setter. He's scored 22, along with Chipper Jones, who scored 24. Somehow Ricky has only scored 18, which is worrisome for a leadoff hitter who's hitting 303. He does have 12 steals. We'll have a look at his caught stealing numbers, of course. And Juan Soto has scored 18, so he's getting around and scoring as well as being a solid run producer. Let's look at the rates. On base percentages look generally good. Ricky Henderson up at almost 370 is elite. Chipper Jones at 333. Derek Jeter, you'd like to see that higher for a guy who hits so high in the lineup. His is 307. Albert Bell is drawing his walks despite not hitting for as much average. His on base is 100 points higher than his average. Juan Soto hitting or on base almost 350. So he might be a guy who needs to be put into a bigger role in this lineup. Aaron Judge on base more than he's getting his hits. And no OPS is over 1,000 except for Correa, who's on the bench. Aaron Judge OPSing over 900. But yeah, something just not quite clicking for this roster. Curious to see if we can find it in the stats. Not a ton of doubles from this roster either, so it seems like when they're getting their hits, it's a lot of singles. Good amount of sacrifice hits. Not a ton of sac flies, though. I wonder what their averages with runners in scoring position are. Okay, here's one of the rally killer stats, grounded into double plays. 10 times between Buck Leonard and Derek Jeter, two guys hitting in the top of this lineup, and then 4 from Victor Martinez, 3 from Judge. Here's one of the rally killers for this lineup. A ton of double plays rolled up on him. Luckily, Ricky's only had 1 rolled up on him. And you would expect the lumbering Albert Bell to roll into more double plays, but he has not. And then caught stealings. I was worried that this could be a little bit worse. Ricky's been caught 3 times to his 12, but you'll live with that. That's still a pretty darn good stolen base percentage. And then some other worrisome caught stealings here, but not horrible. On the defensive side, 4 errors from Victor Martinez, 3 from Juan Soto, 2 from Leonard, 2 from Jones, 1 from Jeter, 1 from Ricky. It's a bit of a fielding issue there, especially when you've got the Orioles across the league with only 3 errors committed by their whole roster. Soriano, living up to his reputation, 6 errors in only 114 innings played. Yikes. How about a rally sustainer on the other side? Maybe that's more of the worry at this point. 3 guys have WAR over 1. Solid walk rates from Bell, Soto, Victor, Judge, and Chino Smith. But the top 4 guys not drawing their walks in the rates that you would like them to. But this team is not striking out a ton. There's one really good encouraging sign for the depth of this roster. Ricky Henderson with a disappointing 191 range factor. He's out there playing center field, but his primary position is left, so maybe the Ricky in center experiment isn't going as well as it was hoped to be. Juan Soto with a 212 doing well out and left. Aaron Judge with a 157. He's a better defender in real life than he is in this game, because that is not a fantastic range factor for a right fielder. The platoon splits. Chipper Jones only hitting 240 against righties, which we're seeing a lot more righties than lefties so far, so that's worrisome for his long term if he keeps that up. Doesn't look like horribly bad platoon splits on this team. Not seeing anything wildly different from season average, other than Chipper, who is raking against lefties at a 362 clip. Ricky Henderson hitting almost 350 against lefties. This team can feast against left-handed pitching. Buck Leonard hitting 325. Juan Soto hitting 343. Judge hitting 333. And they've seen a good amount of left-handed pitching. So maybe this is one of the reasons why the team is winning, is that they've been conveniently set up with a good amount of left-handed pitching opponents, and they've been raking against them. This is maybe 15, 17 more at-bats versus lefties than some of the teams that haven't faced lefties as much. Home and away splits. Make what you will of them. Ricky loves the home cooking. And this team has floundered on the road. Maybe there is a skill there. I would assume that that's just a coincidence and a statistical aberration. We haven't seen anything like that from any other roster. And this is what I really wanted to see, the runners in scoring position situation. Chipper Jones, the guy that we were relying on to be a masher for this roster at that corner infield spot, only hitting 209 in 43 attempts with runners in scoring position. And then across the diamond, Buck Leonard doing better with 295, but he's had 44 attempts. Yeah, I guess that's good. That's right in line with his season average. He has 24 RBIs, so he's performing up to expectation. But Chipper, despite hitting an equal amount of home runs, has left a lot of opportunities on the table and has maybe kind of capped the offensive potential for this team. We're seeing good performances with runners in scoring position from Ricky, from Juan Soto, who has been a pleasant surprise for this roster so far. And that's about it. Everybody else has been climbing up a little bit with runners in scoring position. Derek Jeter, Albert Bell, Victor Martinez, and Aaron Judge failing to get it going when they have the chance to drive in runs. That really could be it. And that is all 30 teams in the Legends League, all 18 Legends and all 12 Commissioners teams. We'll be going into some more action here later today. Hope you enjoyed the stat breakdown. We'll probably do a couple more of these throughout the season, maybe not every month, but at some point we'll do another one of these once we have, maybe 350 at bats or something like that, maybe the halfway point. All right, see you back on the field later.